Hey, my name is Hunter. I'm a plant enthusiast and I've been collecting plants for about 3 years now. In this video, I will be going over my experience as a plant parent and tips to those who are just starting or are looking into getting started on their own plant journey. Before we get started, be sure to hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay up to date on more houseplant tips and advice. All right, let's do this. So first I want to go over the 3 things that I wish I knew before I got started with plants. Number one is that pests can be avoided, but they're gonna come at some point. You can't completely avoid them, unfortunately. My best tip for this is to just not freak out. Most likely they're treatable, and most likely it's not that big of a deal. If you can't identify the pest, I would just recommend to Google what the pest looks like. That's how I kind of learned what each pest looks like, and then you can easily find instructions on how to treat the pests. If you would like me to do a video on common pests and how to treat them, get rid of them, let me know in the comments. Just add a little caterpillar emoji. Number 2 is that losing plants and accidentally killing your plants will happen. Just don't let this discourage you. It's pretty normal and it's a learning lesson, if anything. It's not a failure. You also sometimes might just have a bad plant. There's plenty of plants that I bought in and did not evaluate enough at the plant nursery, and I would get it home and 2 weeks later, or not 2 weeks later, 2 days later, root rot. That was not because of me. That was because of the poor care from the plant nursery. My third tip is to not start with succulents, like echeveria or sedum, stuff like that. I don't have any examples to show you, but if you're on Instagram and you look up succulents, these are going to be the succulents that pop up. Other succulents like Hoya, they're pretty easy. Most of them, anyway, are pretty easy. But I would just avoid them because even though the internet likes to say that they are easy, they can be easy, but they can be hard too. And I have found, and I know several other plant parents have found, that tropical plants are just so much easier. So start with some philodendron. I love me some philodendron. All right, so let's talk about some plants that are great for beginners. My first recommendation is going to be the Hoya carnosa, and here are some examples. Here are some varieties of the Hoya carnosa. This one is called the Crimson Queen. It has variegation on the outside of the leaf. And next we have the daughter, the Crimson Princess. This one has variegation on the inside of the leaf. It's also referred to as Hoya tricolor, I believe. And then next, this is a reverted Crimson Princess. This is basically what the plain carnosa looks like, except for the random variegation. There are a bit of varieties that you can get, but these are the most common besides the original form, which honestly, I don't even know if I've seen just like the OG Hoya carnosa locally, but that's just here in Kansas City. They are technically considered a succulent, but they originate from tropical climates versus like desert climates, so they're a little easier to care for and a little less finicky because they are used to more tropical climates and more watery, wet climates. Most Hoya are epiphytic, and that means that they grow onto things such as tree trunks, and when it rains and the water is trickling down, the roots are absorbing water then. Of course, indoors and in people's homes, they're typically grown in soil. I know a lot of people like to grow them in leca or pond, which are different mediums. I have one plant in leca and it seems to love it. I've actually considered transferring all of my Hoya into leca, but it sounds like a lot of work, and I have enough of that. I have enough plant chores. Anyway, Hoya are typically less thirsty of a plant, so be sure to kind of read up and make sure that you're gonna be able to provide them the proper care. So I would just Google that. You can definitely find multiple sources to tell you what that particular Hoya would like. My second recommendation is going to be a spider plant. I don't actually own one of these. I'm not super into the way they look. They're just not my style of plant. I like bigger foliage. However, they're very common. You can probably find them just about anywhere that sells plants. They are also pet safe, as are Hoya. I forgot to include that. They're very easygoing and very prolific. they will kind of grow little baby plants. I think they call them pups. And then you can cut those off the plant and propagate them, and then they'll turn into another whole big ass plant. My third recommendation is philodendron. I have a lot of philodendron. I should probably count how many different philodendron I have. To me, they're probably one of the easiest plants to care for the most part. I've had a few that were difficult, but keyword is had. They're dead now, but they're pretty easygoing. They are toxic to pets, so you wouldn't want to have them in the house if your pets are prone to chewing on the plants. It's not going to kill them, but it's going to make them upset, and if they ate enough, they might need to go to the vet or something. Thankfully, my cats are well behaved, and I don't have to deal with that. But philodendron can be found in both trailing and climbing. I don't know if you can see this leaf right here, but this is a philodendron. This is, I forget, but it's a philodendron of some sort. Horsehead is the common name. Now for some examples of philodendron. This one is called a philodendron Florida. It is a hybrid. There's a few different varieties that come in different colors as well. This one is called lemon lime philodendron, and it's super easy. One of my first philodendron, and I highly recommend. And this is one of my favorites. This is a philodendron Macaulay's Finelle. I wish it had a newer leaf on it because they come out like bright reddish orange and then fade to the green, but they are stunning. Most of the common philodendron that you can find at your nursery are going to be pretty easy to care for and pretty resilient. So if you accidentally overwater 1 or 2 times, they might get a little sad looking for a while, but they will come back. They're not going to just be like, I'm done. There are some less common types that can definitely be more finicky and a little more frustrating. And I wouldn't start with those, but most likely you're not going to be finding those at your plant nursery, or if you do, they're going to be the more expensive ones that will probably be in like a rare section. All right, so those are my 3 recommendations for beginner plants. Now let's talk about how to choose a healthy plant when you are buying one. So you've decided on a plant to bring home that you just cannot live without, but before you take it home, before you swipe that card, follow these 3 tips. My first tip is to make sure that you check for pests on the plant. You want to entirely look at the plant, and here is a little tutorial on how to do that. Okay, so to check for pests, all you really need to do is, of course, gently flip the leaf upside down and see if you can spot any insects. Spider mites, I will say, at least in my area, are the most common houseplant pests that I see. I don't know if you can actually see that, but there's a tiny little white dot and some webbing there. That's a spider mite. I've been dealing with that for a while on this plant, but I water it and spray it down frequently enough that I haven't been getting any damage. It's just spider mite season. Anyway, you also want to make sure that there is no pests on the stem or the petiole of the leaf. Typically, I would say mealybugs are going to be there, and those are a little bit larger and they're white and fuzzy, kind of disgusting looking too. But just look down the plant entirely and make sure that you don't see any insects or any like damage from insects, which usually is pretty noticeable. Secondly, you're going to need to check the roots. You want to pull that plant out of the pot and make sure that the roots are not rotted or starting to rot. And here is a quick tutorial on how to do that. All right, so here's my Alocasia Black Velvet. She's a little dusty, don't pay attention to that. But what you want to do when you are checking the roots is to grab the plant by the base so you can pull it out gently. And this is going to cause a mess, so that's great for me. The reason you want to grab it by the base is so you don't cause any more damage. And then just gently pull it out. Those roots look healthy. You want to see white roots. If you see black or like dark brown roots, or if they're mushy, that's probably a plant you don't want. And then be sure to put it back in there. My third tip is to research what the plant requires and to make sure that you can actually provide it that. It's especially important if it's a plant that you have not bought or taken care of before. One of my biggest mistakes when I first started out collecting is I'd see something pretty and I'd buy it. And then I'd take it home, and then there's about a 50% chance whether it would live or not, because some plants with my humidity and stuff in my apartment, they're just not gonna live. That way you also know exactly what it needs and you can provide it the best care so it thrives and becomes huge. So next, we're going to go over some basic tools and products that you need to get started to successfully take care of your plants. These 4 things will set you up for success on your plant journey. All of these items and tools will be linked down in the description, and that way you have a direct link to purchase them if you feel so inclined to. Just a heads up, they are affiliate links, so I do make a small portion of the sales, but that does not cost you anything extra, and it just helps me continue to grow this channel. Anyway, first tool you definitely should get, because it is a lifesaver, is a moisture meter. This is used to determine the moisture levels in the soil. That way you don't overwater or underwater your plants. It also comes with like a little chart on the back of the package that tells you at what level you should water those plants. It has helped me tremendously with not overwatering or underwatering plants, but especially overwatering, because I would say that's pretty typical when you're a new plant parent. Here's a little tutorial on how to use it. All right, so when it comes to using the moisture meter, it's very easy. Also, I just want to comment on my micans. Like, this thing was looking almost dead the other day. I was a little worried, but she bounced back, which is another reason you should get a philodendron. Anywho, to use it, all you gotta do is pop the tip of the probe down into that soil. Try not to knock the shelf off if it's on a shelf. And as you can see, it's in between 2 and 3. So right now I would not water this. I try to water my philodendrons when it reaches between 1 and 2. And I mean, every plant's different. So again, read the chart that comes on the back of the package, but it's that easy. You just want to make sure that you don't dip this directly in water, because that will ruin it. Second tool that I recommend is a hygrometer. This little thing measures the humidity levels in your home. This one also does temperature, which is pretty important with plants too, because of course you don't want to get too cold or too hot. But this will just be a little handy monitor for you to make sure that you're providing your plants the right conditions. If your humidity is low, you can always add a humidifier. I don't think most people have an issue with too high of humidity, but of course you could always use a dehumidifier if that's the case. The third item I'm going to recommend is Bonide Systemic Granules. This is a little product you put in the soil, and it distributes the chemicals throughout the plants by absorbing them through the roots. And that way, if there are pests on your plants, it's going to kill them, and it's also going to prevent them from breeding and making more pests. Be sure just to follow the directions on the package so you don't cause any like root burn or anything like that with it. And the fourth product is going to be Neem Oil. This is like the one I use is a spray. You can buy it like concentrated or not concentrated. I just buy it not concentrated because, again, I got enough stuff to do. Just spray the plant down with this, and this will kill any pests that are on the plants. And again, just be sure to read the instructions so you can make sure you're using it properly. All right, that is all the tips and tricks that I have for you beginner plant parents at this moment. If there are any questions, of course, just let me know in the comments and I will be sure to respond. If you could just show me a little love and give it a thumbs up and share with a friend, that would be amazing. That'll help this YouTube channel grow even more so I can help more and more people. I appreciate you, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.